Have you ever stopped to think why you pray so much? Talk to God every day, but nothing seems to change. It's as if your words rise up, hit the ceiling, and return without any response. This feeling of talking to yourself, that God isn't listening, is more common than you think. But here's the hard truth. It's not that God is ignoring you. There are hidden mistakes, which many people make without realizing it, that completely block the effectiveness of prayer. They are silent mistakes that rob you of the power of what you're asking for, and make your prayer nothing more than words floating in the air. In this video, I will reveal the 6 most dangerous and hidden mistakes that paralyze your prayers. And I'll be blunt. When you discover what these mistakes are, and eliminate each one from your life, you'll notice a tangible change in your spiritual life. You'll pray and feel that God is listening. You'll see doors that were closed open. You'll feel God's presence in a way you may never have experienced before. What I'm going to share here isn't theory, it's not catchphrases, it's pure practice. It's what separates an empty prayer from one that truly touches God's heart. So if you're tired of praying and seeing no results, stay with me until the end, because today you'll understand why your prayers weren't working and what needs to change so they're finally heard. Now you will understand hidden errors that were hindering your prayers and preventing you from experiencing real answers from God. This clarity changes everything. Starting today, your prayers can gain strength, direction, and begin to generate concrete transformation in your life. This knowledge is too powerful to be kept to yourself. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, so this message continues to reach you, and even more people who also need to learn how to pray correctly and experience results. Have you ever noticed that many people pray and talk to God all the time, but deep down, they're already thinking nothing will happen? It's as if their mouth is repeating beautiful words, but their heart is murmuring deep inside, "It won't work, it's just one more try, God won't hear me." And that's precisely where one of the most hidden and most dangerous errors lies when it comes to prayer. Speaking without truly believing. Praying without faith is like turning on a dead cell phone. The screen may turn on for a second, but then quickly goes dark because it lacks the power to sustain itself. This is what happens with prayer that isn't accompanied by living faith. It may even rise, but it can't sustain itself before God. Many people don't realize it, but they confuse faith with repetition. They think the more they repeat the same words, the stronger their prayer will be. But what gives weight to your prayer isn't how many times you say it. It's the certainty that God is listening. Faith isn't just waiting for something to happen. It's having the conviction that what you ask for is already being worked out in the spiritual world. When you pray with faith, you speak as someone who has already received, not as someone who is just trying their luck. And I know this sounds too simple, but it's precisely because it's so simple that many people don't practice it. Now stop for a moment and think with me. How many times have you prayed, afraid you wouldn't be answered? How many times have you prayed, and right after saying amen, the thought came to mind, but will it really work? This is the kind of prayer that never gets past the ceiling, because deep down you're already doubting. And doubt is like a hole in a bucket full of water. No matter how much you fill it, it will always leak. Faith needs to be firm. It needs to be secure, because prayer only finds true strength when the heart believes what the mouth is asking for. I want you to think now about a situation in your life where you desperately need an answer from God. It could be healing, a job, opportunity, the restoration of a relationship, or even the strength to overcome an addiction. Now be honest. Have you been praying, believing you'll receive it, or have you just been saying it, like someone throwing words into the air? It's hard to admit, but many people are stuck in the second group, and maybe that's your case too. And that's where transformation comes in. When you recognize this error and decide to change, your prayer begins to take on life. It begins to carry weight before God. And it's not just about believing in God's power, but also believing that He will act through you. Often people believe that God is powerful, but they think He only works miracles for others, never for them. This is a common trap. Living faith doesn't look at circumstances, doesn't rely solely on what the eyes see, but trusts that God is capable of moving the impossible. That's why I want you to pause now and leave a comment. Faith. Write this down as an act of decision, as a commitment. That from now on your prayer will not be just words thrown to the wind, but rather an exercise in real trust. This simple gesture is already a way of strengthening your faith and showing that you are willing to change. You might be thinking, But I can't have all that faith. And it's normal to feel that way because faith isn't born ready-made. It grows as you practice it. Every time you pray with belief, even in the face of difficulty, you're nourishing that faith. And the more you practice, the more it becomes alive within you. David Yonggi Cho, one of the great pastors who taught most about prayer, said that faith is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And there's no other way. You'll only have living faith if you begin to act with faith in every prayer you say. Prayer without faith is like a letter without an address. You write it, put it in the envelope, but forget to include the address. It will never reach its destination. But when you put faith in what you say, it's like writing the correct address, affixing the stamp and being certain the letter will be delivered. Faith is the seal that gives authority to your prayer. Without it, you can talk for hours and hours, but you won't experience any change. And here's the turning point in your spiritual life. When you pray with true belief, your mind begins to change. Your attitude toward problems changes. Your hope is renewed, and you realize you're no longer the same person. Faith transforms not only the prayer, but also the person praying. It's as if your heart becomes firmer, and you begin to face struggles differently, knowing you're not alone. And this is exactly where many people stumble, because they don't realize that this living faith needs to be cultivated every day. It's not enough to simply pray with faith one day and then return to doubt the next. It's a daily exercise in trust, in declaring and believing, even when nothing seems to be happening. And this is where the next point comes in, because there's another hidden error just as subtle that could be sabotaging your prayers without you even realizing it. Do you know what hinders prayer the most after a lack of faith? It's when someone speaks to God without sincerity of heart. It seems simple, but it's one of the most hidden and common mistakes. Some people speak as if they're memorizing a text, repeating beautiful phrases, using elaborate words, but in reality, they're not being honest with what they feel. God isn't impressed by form, He looks at intention, and that's where many people go wrong. A person may even speak like a preacher before a crowd, but if inside they're just repeating empty words, there's no truth, and a prayer without truth doesn't get past the ceiling. How many times have you prayed trying to hide your true feelings from God? Have you ever been filled with fear, but spoken only of trust? Or angry, but tried to disguise it in a gentle, calm prayer? It seems contradictory, but that's what happens to many people. The problem is that you can't fool the one who knows even your most hidden thoughts. Praying insincerely is like trying to talk to a friend while hiding a huge secret from them. You may talk, but the conversation is never genuine, and prayer is exactly that, a conversation with God. Now think with me. What's more valuable, a simple, even awkward, yet true prayer, or a prayer full of beautiful words but devoid of real feeling? It's obvious that God values honesty more. He doesn't expect you to speak like a poet, but rather like a child who trusts the Father. Sincerity touches God's heart in a way no flowery words can. It's like a child who comes to his father and says, "I messed up, help me." It's raw, it's direct, it's true. And that's what creates space for God to act. Many people think that sincerity is weakness, that showing vulnerability is a sign of a lack of faith, but it isn't. Acknowledging what you feel and placing it before God is just the opposite. It's an act of trust. It's saying, "I can't do it alone, but I know you can." And that carries enormous weight before Him. When you try to mask your feelings, prayer loses its power because it's not coming from the bottom of your heart. It's just coming from your mouth. I want you to stop for a moment and think, how have your prayers been? Have you been truly speaking to God or just repeating what you think He would like to hear? This reflection is crucial because from it you can completely change the way you pray. And since we're talking about sincerity, I want to propose something simple. Write the word in the comments. True. This will be your commitment that starting today, you will stop hiding your feelings and start praying with your true colors without masks. This gesture, as simple as it may seem, is already a step toward making your prayers different. And don't think that sincerity only means talking about problems. It also means giving heartfelt thanks, celebrating small victories, and talking about what truly matters in your life. Some people only talk about big requests, but forget to open their hearts about the simple, everyday things. God isn't distant. He's close, and He wants to hear everything, even the things that seem too small to share. Sincerity creates closeness, and that closeness creates intimacy. It's like any relationship. When you tell the truth, trust grows. And here's an important detail. Often, insincerity doesn't arise because a person wants to deceive God, but because they're afraid of being rejected, afraid that if they truly open up, God won't accept them. This fear is a lie that needs to be broken. God doesn't distance himself from your sincerity. He draws closer to it. And when you speak to him without pretense, without trying to impress, you discover that prayer becomes lighter, more real, and closer. Now here's something that will touch your heart. There's no point in having faith without sincerity, because faith needs to be based on truth. If you believe but don't truly speak it, it's like planting a good seed in shallow soil. It might sprout, but it won't last. Faith only takes root when it's accompanied by sincerity of heart. And that's precisely why so many people feel like they pray but aren't heard, because the foundation of prayer isn't firm. And here we come to a crucial point that will directly connect with what follows, because beyond living faith and sincerity of heart, there is another hidden factor that many overlook, but which is crucial for answered prayer. And that's what we'll talk about in the next topic, and I'm sure it will further open your eyes to what might be hindering your prayers. One of the most hidden and at the same time most dangerous errors is praying without aligning our hearts with God's will. Many people confuse prayer with a grocery list. They come before God, ask, and deep down, they believe he's almost like an employee obligated to deliver. But prayer doesn't work that way. God isn't a servant to our whims, but rather the Father who knows exactly what we need, even before we open our mouths. And it's at this point that many people become frustrated, because they ask for things that deep down aren't within his purpose for their lives. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you ask for something with all your might, insisting, and yet it seems like God closes every door? This happens because what you're asking for may make sense in your head, but it's not part of God's plan for you. It's hard to hear, I know, but it's reality. Praying without seeking alignment is like swimming against the tide. You try hard, expend energy, but you don't get anywhere. Prayer only gains real power when you decide that what God wants is more important than what you want. Many people pray for things that, in practice, only feed their ego. They want status, they want to be seen, they want something that has nothing to do with purpose, and then they get upset when they don't receive it. But God doesn't allow himself to be manipulated by pretty words. He answers when he sees sincerity and alignment. And this alignment happens when you understand that prayer isn't about changing God's will, but about adjusting your heart to his. It's like a compass. True prayer points you in the right direction, not the easiest shortcut. I know it can be frustrating to hear that some requests you've made may never be answered the way you hope. But let me give you a simple example. Think of a child asking their father to let them play with fire. They may cry, beg, or promise, but a real father won't answer. Why? Because they know it will hurt. Likewise, there are requests you make that God doesn't answer, because it's not the right time or because it won't bring life. It will bring destruction. This doesn't mean he doesn't love you. On the contrary, it means he loves you too much to let you get burned. Now, I want you to reflect. How many times have you prayed for something that today, looking back, you realize would have destroyed you? How many times have you thanked for not receiving what you so desperately wanted? That's why alignment is so important. And I want you to write the word here in the comments. Purpose. This will be your commitment that from today on, you will not only ask, but you will seek to understand God's will for your life. Because when you pray with this focus, everything changes. You stop praying as someone who only asks for favors and start praying as someone who desires to walk alongside the Creator. And let me tell you something important. Aligning your prayer with God's will doesn't mean you'll never ask for something specific. It means that when you ask, you already place your heart in the position of saying, Lord, let your will be done. This isn't a sign of weakness, but of trust. It's declaring that you prefer God's plan to your own, even if you don't yet understand the details. This is spiritual maturity. And when you begin to live this kind of prayer, something extraordinary happens. The weight of frustration disappears. Because even when God's answer isn't yes, you rest, knowing he's in control. Peace replaces anxiety, and you learn to see beyond the present. This is the kind of transformation that only happens when there's alignment. But here's the point that will shake you. There's no point in having faith, being sincere, and even seeking alignment if your heart is stuck in something that completely cuts off the flow of prayer, something that corrodes you from within, creating an invisible barrier that we often try to ignore. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next point, because that's where many people get stuck without understanding. One of the most serious errors that hinders prayer is harboring resentment in one's heart. Unforgiveness is like an invisible wall that builds between you and God. Many people pray with faith, pray with sincerity, and even seek to align their requests with God's will, but they continue to harbor resentment towards someone. And this is precisely what prevents prayer from flowing. Jesus was very clear when he taught, before offering anything to God, reconcile with anyone you have an unfinished business with. This shows how indispensable forgiveness is for those who want to be heard. Now think with me, how many times have you bent your knees asking for a blessing, but deep down, you are filled with resentment toward someone? Sometimes it's toward a friend who betrayed your trust, a relative who hurt you, a colleague who spoke ill of you, or even toward yourself for past mistakes. The truth is that resentment imprisons the soul and contaminates prayer. It's like trying to drink clean water from a glass full of dirt. No matter how much you fill it, the water will always be cloudy. A heart filled with resentment cannot be filled with God's presence. And the most dangerous thing is that we tend to justify this resentment. Oh, but I'm right, he hurt me, she harmed me. I didn't deserve to go through this. This may be true, but forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. Forgiveness is about you being free. When you decide to forgive, it doesn't mean you approve of the other person's mistake. It means you no longer carry the weight of it. It's like releasing a huge stone you've been carrying on your shoulders for years. Forgiveness liberates, and without it, prayer becomes blocked. I know it's hard sometimes. Sometimes the wound is so deep that just hearing the person's name makes me angry. But that's where the power of decision comes in. Forgiveness isn't about wanting to, it's about choosing. You can decide to forgive today even without feeling it, and place that decision before God. And over time, your feelings will be transformed. Forgiveness is a process, but it always begins with a choice. And I want you to do something now that will help you in this process. Write the word here in the comments, forgiveness. This simple act is already a declaration that you no longer want to let resentment block your spiritual life. It's a courageous step, because admitting that you need to forgive isn't easy. But it's precisely this that will unlock your prayers and bring peace to your heart. One of the most liberating things you can experience is realizing that, after releasing forgiveness, prayer becomes lighter again. It's as if the heavens have opened up again. You pray and feel heard because your heart is no longer trapped in the past. And this brings a peace that no revenge, no resentment could ever bring. Now let me warn you about something even more profound. It's not just resentment toward others that blocks your prayer, but also resentment toward yourself. Many people pray carrying guilt, condemning themselves as if they were unworthy of being heard. But if God has already forgiven you, who are you not to forgive yourself? Carrying guilt is like trying to row with a stuck anchor. You try hard, but you never get anywhere. The forgiveness you need to give yourself is also essential for your prayer to be heard. And here we come to a delicate point. You can have faith. You can be sincere. You can seek God's purpose and even try to forgive. But there's something that continues to defeat many prayers, something that makes people give up too quickly. And that's what we'll talk about next, because it's one of the most common mistakes, and one that often you don't even realize you're making. One of the most common mistakes that prevent prayer from reaching its peak is a lack of perseverance. Many people pray once, twice, and then immediately think, I guess God didn't hear me. It's as if they're in a rush to receive everything immediately, and when that doesn't happen, they simply give up. But prayer doesn't work like a magic button you press, and immediately the answer falls from heaven. Prayer is a relationship, a process and persistence. Jesus himself told parables to teach that we must always pray and never give up. Perseverance is what shows that you truly believe in what you're asking for. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone achieve something great without continuous effort? Everything in life requires constancy. If you want to learn an instrument, you need to practice every day. If you want to change your body, you need to train with discipline. Why would it be any different? In your prayer life, perseverance is like spiritual training that strengthens your faith and prepares you to receive what you're asking for. The hidden error lies in giving up too quickly, like someone who plants a seed today and tomorrow digs up the soil to see if it has sprouted. Those who act like this will never see the fruits, and here's a detail few people realize. A delay in an answer doesn't mean God is silent, but rather that he is working behind the scenes. Sometimes the answer takes time because it involves other people, circumstances, or even because God is shaping your character before releasing what you asked for. It's like a father who won't give a car to his 10-year-old son, even though he asks for it every day. He doesn't refuse because he doesn't love him, but because he knows it's not the right time. Perseverance in prayer teaches patience and dependence. Now, I want you to be honest. How many times have you started praying for something, but after a few days, weeks or months, simply stopped because you thought it was no longer worth it? This is the hidden error that needs to be broken. The answer may be much closer than you think, but only those who continue praying until the end can see the result. And I want you to write the word here in the comments. Constancy. This gesture will be a commitment that you will not give up easily, but will persevere until you see God act. The truth is that persevering doesn't mean mechanically repeating the same words every day, but keeping the flame of faith alive, believing and reminding God of what you're waiting for. It's like a persistent child who won't give up until he gets his father's attention. The father knows what his son wants, but he smiles when he sees the persistence. Perseverance shows seriousness. It shows that you're not just throwing words to the wind, but truly trusts that God will act. And this is where another, even more delicate point arises. There's no point in persevering in prayer if the motivation behind the request is corrupted. Some people pray without stopping, but deep down their intention is selfish, prideful, or vanity-driven. And this is precisely where many prayers get stuck, almost invisibly. This is the next hidden error that needs to be revealed, and you'll see how it can be present without you even noticing. Another hidden error that prevents prayer from reaching the ceiling is praying with false intentions. This happens when, behind the beautiful words, there's a heart interested only in selfish gain, status-seeking, pride, or even proving something to others. It's a subtle error, because often the person thinks they're asking for something fair, but deep down, their motivation isn't pure, and God isn't fooled. He doesn't just look at what you say, he looks at what's behind it. How many times does someone pray for prosperity, not because they want to bless their family, serve others, or have a dignified life, but because they want to show others that they've won, that they're better, that they've achieved more than others? Or when they ask for a promotion at work, not to serve better, but to have power over others. These prayers lack power because they're not aligned with the essence of who God is. The wrong motivation cuts the power of prayer at its root, and here it's important for you to understand one thing. Praying with purity of intention doesn't mean you can't ask for things for yourself. Of course, you can ask for blessings, victory, and open doors. The problem isn't the request itself, but the reason behind it. God has no problem giving you good things, but he won't feed vanity or pride. Purity of intention is what differentiates a sincere request from an empty prayer. I want you to reflect now. Think about something you've been asking God for a long time. Ask yourself, why do I want this? What's the real reason for this request? Being honest at this point can be uncomfortable, because you may discover that you've been praying for reasons that don't please God. But it's precisely this honesty that can unlock your prayer. If you realize your motivation isn't pure, that's the first step toward change. And here I want to give you a simple challenge. Write the word in the comments intention. This act will symbolize your willingness to re-examine what moves your heart when you kneel to pray. It's a way of committing to not letting pride, envy, or vanity fuel your prayer. God honors the heart that seeks sincerely, and this simple gesture can mark the beginning of a change. Purity of intention brings freedom. When you pray with a pure heart, you don't feel burdened or overly anxious, because you know your request is not only for your benefit, but also for God's glory. This builds trust because you understand that he wants to answer prayers that reflect love, justice, and truth. Pure prayer attracts answers because it has purpose. And here's something that will open your eyes. There's no point in having faith, being sincere, aligning yourself with God's will, forgiving and persevering if there are ulterior motives behind what you pray for. This nullifies everything else. Therefore, reviewing your motivations is one of the most important things you can do in your prayer life. And there's one detail that many people forget. Beyond purity of intention, there's another essential ingredient that can completely change the outcome of your prayer. It's something that seems simple, but has the power to open doors that were previously closed. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next point. One of the most hidden mistakes that many people don't realize is praying without gratitude. It's amazing how most people kneel, ask, and ask, but forget to be thankful for what they already have. And ingratitude is a powerful spiritual block, because when you only ask, without acknowledging what you've already received, your prayer sounds like someone who is dissatisfied, like someone who is never content. God is not pleased with this kind of attitude, because an ungrateful heart shows that nothing will ever be enough. Think about it. How many times have you given thanks for the air you breathe, the bed you slept in, the food you had today, the people who are still by your side? Often we only remember to give thanks when something big happens, but we forget that the greatest blessings are found in the simple things. And when you don't cultivate gratitude, your prayer loses power, because it seems like you don't recognize God's hand already at work in your life. And there's one detail that needs to be made clear. Gratitude isn't just a lip service to thank you. True gratitude is acknowledging with the heart. It's realizing that even in struggles there are reasons to be thankful, because each difficulty also teaches you something, strengthens you, and prepares you. When you give thanks, even without seeing the answer yet, you show faith. And that's exactly what moves God's heart. Gratitude is like a key that opens spiritual doors, because it shows that you already trust before you even receive. Now I want you to think about how many times you've neglected to give thanks and just complained. This may even be happening automatically. You pray complaining about what's missing, but never giving thanks for what you already have. And perhaps it's precisely this ingratitude that's hindering your prayers. So, I want to propose something very simple. Write the word here in the comments. Gratitude. This gesture is symbolic, but it carries enormous weight, because it is you declaring that from today on, you will change your posture in prayer. You will learn to be grateful more than you complain. And just look, gratitude not only strengthens prayer, it also changes your emotional state. Ungrateful people are always heavy, negative, and sad. Grateful people, on the other hand, radiate lightness, hope, and faith. Gratitude attracts good things because those who give thanks make room to receive more. It's like a child who is grateful for every gift they receive. Parents are happy to give more. So it is with God. He delights in blessing those who acknowledge even the smallest things. But here comes a point you may never have considered. It's no use just giving thanks and then not acting on the faith you professed. Gratitude opens doors, but it needs to be accompanied by actions that show you truly believe in what you pray for. And it's this essential detail we'll discuss in the next point, something that can completely transform the way you pray. One of the most common mistakes, one that almost no one admits, is praying without taking any action. It's like asking God to open a door, but never getting up from the chair to turn the handle. Many people talk, declare, ask, cry, but when they get up from their place of prayer, they continue living the same way, without taking a step of faith. And here's the truth. Prayer, without corresponding action, is a dead faith. There's no point in praying to pass a test if you don't study. There's no point in praying to change your financial life if you don't organize yourself. There's no point in praying for health if you don't take care of your body. Prayer is powerful, but it needs to be accompanied by actions that show you truly believe in what you're asking for. God doesn't just answer words, He answers with living faith. And living faith always generates movement. It's like someone who asks for rain and leaves the house with an umbrella. This kind of attitude shows that the prayer wasn't just a ritual, but a real commitment. Now think about it. How many times have you asked God for something and, deep down, done nothing to show that you were ready to receive it? This is a hidden error because we tend to think that praying and waiting are enough. But true waiting isn't passive. It's active. It's preparing the ground while trusting that the answer will come. And there's a very serious detail here. God has often already released the answer, but the person isn't ready to receive it because they haven't acted in accordance with what they asked for. It's like asking to be used for something big, but not preparing yourself in the basics. Asking for a better job, but arriving late for your current one. Asking for a restored family, but not changing the way you treat people at home. Inconsistency between what you ask for and what you do hinders prayer. I want you to reflect now. What practical action do you need to take in relation to what you are asking God for? And to mark this commitment to putting your faith into action, I want you to write the word here in the comments. Action. This gesture is simple, but it's like saying, I won't just pray, I'll live my prayer. This is true faith. This is prayer with life. And the most amazing thing is that when you begin to align your actions with what you pray for, you notice changes happening. Not only around you, but within you. You feel confident because you're not just passively waiting. You're moving toward what you've asked for. It's at this point that prayer becomes complete. Faith in your mouth and action in your hands. Now you know the hidden errors that were hindering your prayers and preventing you from experiencing real answers from God. This content opened your eyes to points you might never have noticed, and from now on, your way of praying will never be the same. You gained clarity, direction, and practical tools that can transform your spiritual life. And just as this video helped you, it can also help thousands of others who are praying and don't understand why they don't receive answers. So, like this video and subscribe to the channel. This way you allow more people to access this knowledge and further strengthen this community. To mark that you've made it this far, write the word I in the comments, transformation, and get ready, because the next video will take you even deeper into this path, revealing truths that can completely change your walk with God.